Good morning. My name is Scott Stanfield, and this is the Modern Longeviterian. And I'm so excited about today's show, episode number 55. And this is a big deal for me. It's a big number in my life. And we've already got a couple comments coming in. Let's see what's going on here. What's up, Standstill? That's AJ Camp. It's got to be. He's the one that still brings up that nickname from back in my racing days when I raced for the Camp family, Jack and Norman, and back in the day. This is going to be kind of a throwback episode for me, and I'm going to tie in some health things into this as well, being a modern longevegetarian. So, AJ, thanks for being here. Thanks for being on the show, and so it's going to be a super fun episode for me. I don't know if Dad's ever going to see this show. It's on Facebook. I know he's on Facebook, but either way, it's going to be really, really cool. First off, I want to say thanks to my friends over at Redmond Real Salt. Redmond has multiple things. I'm a huge fan of their products. I keep on my desk here, I keep their salt, right, to throw under my tongue when I'm fasting or any of those things to help with electrolytes. Their Relight lemon lime Relight is a non-sugar electrolyte replacement. And I love that toothpaste. I love the lemon toothpaste as well. And then we use the bentonite clay for multiple things, taking baths, with detoxing with that, and then also occasional, when you have a spa day, you don't want to do a facial, you can use bentonite clay, which will suck out all the impurities out of your pores on your face. So highly encourage you to check the link out, go look at what they've got. It helps support the show. And again, episode 55, and I do these weekdays at 12 noon Eastern time. It's 10 a.m. here. I had a little technical difficulty this morning. The things weren't working, but I want to break into this and say, why is number 55 so important? And those of you who know me for a long time know that when when we raced, before there were sponsorships or any of those types of things, when it was Dad and me, it was if we could get it, number 55, and we that's what the number we ran was, 55, and we were known for that. And where did that come from? Well, that came specifically from my dad was a huge fan of Tiny Lung. And who is Tiny Lung? Right. Well, there's a picture of him right there. And really interesting story. I did some research on him this morning. And Tiny was a old school NASCAR racer. He was a journeyman, race for hire at the top level of NASCAR. He won the 1963 Daytona 500. Interesting how he got into that race was I drove for the Wood Brothers, which is number 21, and Marvin Ponch had got into an accident racing in the sports car race just as a precursor during Speed Week in Daytona back in 1963. It was a fire, got injured. Tiny was brought in, wasn't even scheduled to race, and he raced and won for the Wood Brothers. And Wood Brothers is a very historic team that goes back years and years and years. Obviously, 1963. Tiny's greatest success was in the NASCAR Grand American Series that only ran for 4 years, won the championship 3 out of the 4 years, and he won 41 of the 109 races that were in this entire time that they had this series. It's a 38% winning ratio, which is off the freaking charts, off the charts. Tiny was his nickname because he stood 6'5", weighed 270 pounds, and that's how he got his nickname. He wouldn't even fit into a modern day NASCAR at all. He wouldn't fit into any race car of the modern day. Maybe some sort of truck or something like that, but I don't think he would. August 17th, 1975, he was racing in a 1 week rain delayed Talladega race, Talladega 500. He was the first alternate, wasn't even supposed to be in the race. Somebody else dropped out. Flew to get there on Bobby Allison's private plane, and in lap 7 down the backstretch, JD McDuffie and Tiny got into an accident, and he passed away from the accident. Bud Moore, which is another South Carolina race team, they had won the race, and he actually is a car owner, and they didn't even celebrate because of Tiny's passing. So that's who my dad was a huge fan of, Tiny. It was almost like he was you got to think he won a ton of races, and was really successful. In high school, my dad, like a lot of people who may have, be watching this show at some point, used to go on Thursdays in Columbia, South Carolina, go to the old Columbia Speedway when he was in high school and watch the greats like Tom Pistone, Tiny Long, the Allison brothers would come in town, Richard Petty, the Yarborough brothers, all of them would come into town on Thursday nights and race in Columbia. That was old school NASCAR when they raced 200 times a year. For me, there's like at least three eras of NASCAR that are out there. One was, that time when they're racing 200 times a year, then the modern age when they went to like the 32 and 36 races a year. And then what is happening now is probably a new level that computers have come in and all those type of things. And so anyway, let's talk about some of the honorable mentions, lessons that I've learned from my dad. Then I'll get to the top three. And then I have a bonus one for you if you want to stick around to the end. And and that is and you got to think that, my dad is the son of a small town Southern man. And my grandfather grew up in Walterboro, South Carolina. So so this must be Green. We have Greenville Pickens Speedway. Yep, Greenville Pickens. And as far as I know, Old Columbia Speedway is still there. I haven't lived in South Carolina in 18 years. I don't know, but I've walked the track before, but they haven't raced there in a long time. And it's over, I think, in Casey area. Anyway, I come behind this. This is the lessons, life lessons from my dad that did not make the top three or top four with the bonus. Come from behind victory is sweet. Being prepared, be prepared for anything. The Boy Scouts have nothing on my dad when it comes to being prepared. My dad, and my favorite quote about being prepared comes from The Art of War, and I guess I kind of carry that over into my life, which is the battle is won or lost before it begins. And so being prepared is super important. And because my dad was so prepared, he had things at the racetrack that other people didn't have, tools and different types of things. So always be willing to loan out your tools or your vise. He was one of the few people who had a vise on this old Army fold-up table that we had, that I guess he got from when he was got out in the Army. So that was one of the things there. Another interesting thing, he would pause to study on a problem, right? And so that was another thing, to think about things. And this is something that carried over into my life as well. You've got to start somewhere. This came from words of encouragement. When I would either drew a bad position, because we would draw these pills out of a bottle to get starting positions, or pieces of paper or something like that, or if I qualified poorly. Of all the skills in racing, driving fast with nothing to chase, no one to chase, was one of the toughest ones for me to learn. And it was one of the last ones that I learned, learning to qualify. And so you always had to start somewhere, right? I may have been faster in practice and faster in the race, but the qualifying was not a skill that I learned until later. And then if you're going to do something, do it right. And that was another one, right? We didn't want to cheat, with on the tech side of things and those things. So do it honestly. And if you're going to do something, take the time to do it the right way. And then let your right foot do the talking. That was I was a young teenager racing and starting to get pretty good, and we start talking a little trash and a little smack, and he would hear that and say, "Hey, just let your right foot, your gas pedal foot, do the talking. Don't talk trash." And this list goes on and on and on for my dad. So this is really cool. So this is going to be fun for me, and I hope you get a lot out of it. So the first thing, this dates back to me, like very beginning days of racing. We had an old Wasp by Bug, and so those of you who are racing know what this is. Really stiff chassis. It was outdated, and we were just trying to make all the things happen. And so he had my mom paint on the back of the. This is number one. Think finish. And my mom painted this on the back of my number panels. So I could see it, like when I got on the go-kart, and you can kind of see it through the steering wheel and things like that. This is before we had fairings or nose cones or body work or any of those type of things. This was just like a frame and four number panels and four tires and an engine and a driver. That was all you had. And so I want you to really think about this. Think finish. And this is a super important thing that's really carried through my life. And one of the very first lessons that I got from dad. And this taught me persistence. And gosh, for those of you who know me, have known me for a long time with racing, and back in the early days when I was 7, 8, years old, even later, I had like a thumbnail's worth of talent when it came to driving, but the desire was deep in me. All right. I really love racing, and I always envisioned myself racing, winning championships and doing those things. But it took 8 years to win our first race. And even when I was 16 years old, I'd never finished in the top 5 in a national event. That's why I raced an amateur, a season as an amateur. And I was almost like, you could, in golf, an analogy would be the best golfer to not win a major, right? So it'd been like, I don't know if I was the best, but I was, one of the best racers to never finish in the top 5 in a national event. So we took a season, and 88, end of 88 and all of 89. And at the national level, raced and won the national championship in an amateur class. And what you could gauge yourself off was times of what the pro classes were doing and things like that. And so at times we were just as fast or almost as fast or sometimes faster than the pro classes. Well, some of it was that we didn't have as much traffic on the track and we weren't battling as much, right? So meaning that if you could get out front, you could drive faster than if you're passing people and those type of things. But I'd been racing for, at 16, I've been racing since 7, right? So I've been racing 9 years at this point before I really started winning races. So it takes time to learn your skill. If you got to have the desire and have put in your 10,000 hours to do that. So what does this mean to me today? This think finish. When you finish, when you finish something that you started, you have integrity with yourself. Then you can have integrity with others. I mean, this builds character. It's not about finishing the race so much. It's about finishing the season you're in. So yes, in racing, there's a saying: to finish first, you must first finish. And so to be successful at something, you've got to finish. And that's why I love doing this live show, because in the next, 45 minutes is going to be over. This is going to be finished and I get to move on to the next day. Tomorrow's show is Nathan Wilkins. He's a personal trainer. And we've met over LinkedIn and he's going to be scheduled for the show. So that's going to be a New Year's Eve show. I'm sure we're going to talk about setting New Year's resolutions and weight loss and those type of things. But today's today. And this show is going to be complete when it's over. And then I'm going to go on a hike and that's going to be completed, and all those type of things that are happening. With that. So basically this boils down, it's the war, not the battle that counts. Yes, you got to finish the battle to win the war, but it's really about finishing the long-term things that you set out to do. And for someone who talks about longevity and health span and all of those type of things, this is super important because this is where the tortoise and the hare, the tension and the rubber meets the road between those two, where we're living in today, but we're also looking at an eye on tomorrow. So for me, finishing what you started does multiple things. And I actually have talked about writing a book called Think Finish, because this is such an important aspect in having integrity with yourself, building your character and your value out in the world by finishing what you started, being a person of your word and doing those things. And so I know this is something that's been a huge example for me in my life. Number 2, this is proper Southern English, by the way, if you're watching this and you're not from the South. So the double negative, it still means a negative, right? So can't, never, did, do anything. Proper Southern grammar. And so it's so funny, the correlation between the word I can't, right? We hear this all the time. I can't do this. I can't do that. I can't do this. I can't do that. And it's funny. There's a couple things, right? When we did P90X as a training program, there's one of the really interesting things about that with doing pull-ups, right? Tony Horton, you probably know this is the biggest selling home workout exercise program of all freaking time in the history of the world. It made Tony Horton a household name. And P90X, and he says, it's not that you can't do pull-ups, that you currently struggle with pull-ups. And so that's really, so it's not that you can't do anything, right? Just delete the word can't or any derivative of that from your vocabulary because you currently struggle with, or you can ask for help for something. Matthew McConaughey in his new book, Green Lights, which is an amazing book. My son and I were reading some from it last night. And I've listened to multiple podcasts, him talking about this. And this in the specific thing, the word can't. And as he put it, he got his first whooping for saying for answering to the word Matt. And he was like, "You're not a doormat. Your name is Matthew," right? So answering your name. Second whooping he ever got was cursing. And the third whooping he ever got was from saying, "I can't do something." So it's this, I don't know if it's a Southern thing or this is just a family thing or just a mindset thing. So but saying the word can't is limiting, right? If you believe that your beliefs dictate your actions, if you say you can't do something, like Henry Ford said, whether you believe you can or you can't, you're right. So if you think you can do something and you're currently struggling with it, you know, you whatever you think can or can't, you are right, and you're just going to be your self-fulfilling prophecy. So can't never did do anything is a huge thing in my life, because it's allowed me to do things that I never would have thought that were possible for me in my life. And so I encourage you to delete that, any derivatives or anything around that, and change the verbiage, right? You could use some magic words, right? Up until now, I could not do pull-ups, and now I can do two, right? And so it's like when I started doing P90X, we do it as self-test in the beginning, and this was, God, my son was in kindergarten, so 13 years ago. I think I could do only like one or two pull-ups, and when I did the program, and I did 60 days before my parents' house burnt down, and all these, I had to go back to South Carolina and help them, and with things. I was doing 12 to 14, depending on if it was front, forward or reverse grip, pull-ups. So you can start with it. You start somewhere and then say, oh, I can't, and give up, or you can say you can and you currently struggle with, and then you can finish it, and then you can grow in that particular area that you're struggling in. So that's super, super important to change that. Number three, it wasn't what he said, it was what he did. And this is, we got a comment come in. Let's see here. Let's see here. All right. John Michael Collins coming in from LinkedIn. I want to thank you for your words. Everything your sayings have brought the lessons for my grandparents to mind. Those are lessons and things they said to me every day. Yeah, this is old school stuff, John. It's super fun, and you're welcome. I really appreciate you watching the show. It really means a lot. And for everybody who's watching out there, and by the way, if you're watching on Spirituality Gone Wild Network, I want to say thanks for joining in. They're my broadcast partners, and I'm super excited to be joined with them. And we've got so many things coming. One of them we're working on right now is the Book of Secrets from all the co-creators, or the bulk of the co-creators inside of the Spirituality Gone Wild Network, which is going to, and I'm actually putting the book together, and I get to read the secrets behind the scenes before it's all coming together. It's crazy stuff. And you can be able to download this book for free. And and do that. So if you think this is good, this is great stuff, but I encourage you to, when that comes out over the next week or two, to go and download that. But I'm teasing that. So if Debbie G, you're watching, I'm teasing the Book of Secrets and putting it, we're going to put this out in the world. It's going to be super amazing. So back to number three. Remember, number one was a think finish. Number two is never, can't never to do anything. So delete the word can't from your vocabulary. Number three, it wasn't what he said. He never said anything about this, but it was what he did. Now, and wrong one. So this is it. So it's be your kid's number one fan. And this is, again, goes back to racing. And even he does this today with grandkids. Huge fan of grandkids and the kids and of mine, right? And so when I race go-karts, when we raced, it wasn't really, I couldn't get there without him. I couldn't drive and all those things. One of my first state level race wins was at St. Matthews, our local track, dirt. I was racing junior, and I was coming out of turn 4, and I have this picture, and I couldn't get it in time because it's stored away in the attic in one of the photo albums we have. But there's this picture that is taken of my dad, because they let, when we raced junior in the younger classes, the dads could go in the infield in case there was an accident, so they could get to him quickly in case somebody got hurt or needed to break the carts apart, things like that, just to help with the safety aspect of it. And so there's a couple of things about this. One is, and I get back to that story, is we would go race asphalt in the morning, and we would clean our tires with either these knives or heat guns later in our career and stuff like that. And there would be rubber that the tires that picked up off the track that we would peel off, that would be on the ground in the pit area, and it would get on my dad's shoes, right? And he would actually, like, it would be like they said he was out there like a rooster trying to clean his shoes off in the infield, right? Because we would be the dirt track that night. We would race twice in a day. We would go race asphalt in the morning, then go race dirt at night. And I think that was actually another lesson that my dad taught me which was to be very well rounded in what you do. And was I ever the best, at doing anything in racing? I don't think so. No, that's me being humble and understanding that I had some great luck and great sponsors and great people that collaborated with me over the years and schooled me, helped me, pushed me forward, did all kind of crazy stuff, taught me even lessons that are just as good as this. And so I'm very thankful for that. But I want to say that to be well rounded, and one of the things I was is a very well rounded driver, and I could drive on multiple surfaces no matter what the conditions were. And so that really helped me in understanding and opening my mind to different things. But back to this is be your kid's number one fan. There's this picture of the infield. I'm coming out of turn 4. I remember we had some difficulties that day, like my helmet broke and I had to borrow somebody's helmet, and so because it's at night now and it's a state level race. And one of my very first state level wins, I'm coming out of turn 4. The picture has got me on the left driving, and it's got him in the air jumping and clapping. I wish I had the picture for this, and I'll try to find this at some point. And some of you probably remember that picture or remember watching my dad. And I heard over the years, I'd much rather watch your dad cheer for you racing than even watch the race. So that's how big of a fan he was, and still is to this day. And so I just was thinking about this the other day. My son was talking about going to college and what he wants to do when he grows up, and he never really my kids never really competed anything or done anything like this. So with the racing or that stuff, they take a martial arts and played baseball and dance and gymnastics and those type of things, but never on a like competitive level, state or national level. But it's like, well, what if you're the fan of your kids, as they're growing up and they want to, like, what they want to be in their life, and you're helping them become who they really are designed to be on the inside. you know, the racing piece came from me. It was an internal thing inside of me. My dad wanted me to play baseball and basketball, and I did. I played pee wee, and I played basketball in middle school, and those things. But when I got into high school, it was just racing. It's just really what I wanted to do, and that was what I connected with. And so I encourage all of us to look into our kids and not let what we believe about life to influence them or keep them from doing what they're really designed to do. Or as it says in the Bible, as they were knitted together in their mother's womb to be unique. And that doesn't mean that, I manage restaurants, worked in restaurants for almost 30 years. My son has worked in a couple restaurants and doesn't like it so much. So I'm not saying that he has to do that. Go find out what you're supposed to be and follow that energy now and go down that trail, and I'll take you to where you need to be in life based on what your interests are and those things. So even my dad does this today with one of his youngest grandchildren. She is now a black belt in karate. They travel around. They go to competitions. They call me on the way back from the shows and tell me about the medals she's won and those type of things. She wins gold and silver medals and those things. And he's there, takes her to karate. And it's like an outer body experience watching what the same process he did with me growing up with the racing. And so it's really cool to see this. So back to number one is think finish. Number two is delete can't, right? You can do what you set your mind to, right? And number three, be your kids number one fan, kids and grandkids number one fan, and pull for them, root for them, be the president of their fan club. And that's super super important. So we got a comment that just came in. Let's see what we got. You're bringing up some good memories here. So that must be AJ again, I'm assuming. But it says you bring us. It's really super super fun. It's to get back to this. So a bonus round. Here we are. Bonus round. So this again is not anything that he ever said. And I'm bringing this up because this is from when he got cancer and being a modern longevitarian, talk about health and all those type of things. And it's really what he did. this wasn't conscious, I don't believe, but he garnered support from his community. He talked about it. See, I'm a very private person, didn't like talk. I was very shy back when I was young, believe it or not. I got a live show now and talk 5 days a week. I'm going to talk, Monday I talk for an hour by myself without taking a breath. Right. And here we are now, we're 27 minutes in live here. And so believe it or not, I was extremely shy back in the day. And now this lesson came later in life for me. He was 55. Look at the irony of this, right? He was 55 years old, got prostate cancer. I was 31. My wife and my son were living on the U.S. Virgin Islands in St. Croix. I'm the food and beverage director, the seventh largest oil refinery in the world, and my dad gets cancer. Now, the first thing is he calls me to tell me he has cancer, and this is a year after Dale Earnhardt passed away. And Dale Earnhardt Jr. had just won the Daytona 500, so another racing connection. The phone rings. I know it's my dad. He's calling. We're going to celebrate, talk about Dale Jr. winning, how amazing that is, and all those different things. And he basically just takes a breath and says, "I have cancer." Now, and so that took my breath away. It's like changed the whole vibe for what was happening that particular day. And it was really interesting about that whole thing. But what dad did is he got support from his community. He talked about his cancer. He was open about it. And what I saw from the outside looking in is that now that I'm looking at what my pillar is, pillar number 9 for being a modern longevitarian is connection. Not connecting with nature, but also connecting with your family, friends, and community. And it shows in the blue zones that the correlation to connecting with your community is a huge driver in someone's longevity. So it's no secret to me that one of the reasons why my dad at 72 right now is a cancer survivor is because he engaged with his community. He got assistance. He got help. He somebody reached down and gave him a helping hand when he needed it. And so I encourage you if something like this comes upon you, to connect with your community, or even do it as a preemptive thing, is because it's so big. And what happens is, like right now, we're all on Zoom, we're all meeting online. We're not going to churches anymore. We're this, like, depending where you are in the world. But the restaurant that I was managing 9 months ago is closed right now. It's in California, across the street from the Santa Monica Pier. It's closed. It's not open. So it's like, we're even like going into restaurants and being about a bunch of strangers is impossible to do in certain parts of our world right now. And so I encourage you, as we're getting into the new year, to really focus on connecting with people in the way that you can connect with people, because it's a big part of our health in doing this. So he never said this, and it was a teaching moment for me, and it was a deeper level one. And these keep growing for growing on me. And I just want you to understand, right? So about this, not understand, but I want to recap. Okay. So I want to show these pictures, right? So again, finish what you start, finish the battle or what you're working on right now, but also look at the long run for this, right? Delete the word can't, or say can't, never did do anything, right? Which is a double negative, which really means a positive. Proper Southern grammar for sure. Be your kids' number one fan, right? Support them the best that you possibly can, and be a president of their fan club, right? And this even includes other family members and spouses and things too. But this is the lesson that I learned from my dad. Garner support from your community, especially when the crap hits the fan, especially when that happens. And here's another one. Look up to your heroes, right? Number 55, tiny lung, 38% winning ratio, 3 championships out of 4 years. The entire NASCAR Grand American Series ran, right? That was who that's where it came from. And we ran that number, and we ran some other numbers, right? If you couldn't get 55, we run 50. Or we, and we have friends. Gerald ran 56, Furman ran 57. So it was like, Gerald Starnes and Furman Myers. And it was super important. And to be part of a community when you race, and we had these numbers that we ran, and we were kind of like teammates and helped each other out. And so there was and so there was another piece of the puzzle here, that was another big turning point. And this is and number three, with the fandom piece, fan of your family, or fan of your kid, right? My dad and I raced together on the same cart, and so we'd have like spacers for me, my feet, or in the seat, or things like that. And because Dad was taller than me, and for a while, I'm taller than him now. I'm sorry I had to say that, Dad. But and but my point is this, it's is that the turning point in our racing was when Lewis Myers gave my dad two pieces of advice. One is that stop racing and just focus on your son's racing. And so when Dad started, got off the cart, they set the cart up just for me, right? And no longer it was awkward for it wasn't awkward for me to drive anymore, and got the weight ratios right, the seat in the right place, and those type of things. You got to think on a cart, the bulk of the weight on the cart, for the most part, is the driver. So getting the driver in the right spot for your weight ratios is the most important thing you could do in setting up your cart, right? And so, I mean, short of tire compounds and pressures and staggers and gearing and horsepower and those things, but in terms of setup, where the driver sits is super important. It creates like roll in the cart, depending those type of things, right? And so that was great advice. The other one is that get a better cart, chassis. So Lewis sold my dad their Margate Expert, which was a huge upgrade from the Wasp that I've been driving. And so those two things, and so the Myers family were a huge influence early in my career. I ate dinner at their house so many times. Furman taught me how to lift weights, and now look, and now I have a whole pillar on movement and those things. And so going to the gym with him, working out in their garage and those things, they were like, parents and mentors to me. And Furman was like a big brother, and those things. And so many people have been a big part of this growth and this version of Scott Stanfield that you see in front of you right now. The Sox family, the Camp family, all have contributed to this, right? To grow and getting to that point. And so I say thank you to them too. But my dad, built my engines, and we named engines like the Junkyard Dog, and and things like that. It was really cool stuff. And so it's been an amazing ride, over the years. So again, recap: top three lessons I learned from my dad: think, finish, delete the word can't from your vocabulary and your mindset, and then be the number one fan of your kids and grandkids. I don't have any grandkids, but your kids and grandkids. I am speaking to modern longevitarians here. And then number three, my bonus round, is that when cancer hits, or something hits the fan, reach out to your community for support. It's super important. And AJ, yes, support is so important with cancer. And I put your comment up a second ago. Thank you for being here, everybody, and commenting, liking the show. I've got so many likes that have come in today on all the different places that we stream. We stream 6 places on Facebook: Spirituality Gone Wild, Global Family, my Modern Longevitarian page, Modern Longevitarian private group, my profile, and then also we are streaming on LinkedIn, which is a super blessing to have because it's by application only. And then on my YouTube channel, again, so my name is Scott Stanfield. I am the Modern Longevitarian, and I'm going to wrap this up. It is time to roll the credits. And, the working title for this show has always been, It's My Friday. And if today's your Friday, I hope you have a wonderful, blessed weekend. Tune in tomorrow's show with Nathan Wilkins. I'm super excited to have him on and kick off the new year and have New Year's Eve show. It's going to be super amazing, super fun. It's time to roll credits. Cheers.